Well, after a long wait, the main event finally came and went, only this year there's a slight twist. Most of the focus is usually on the first round of the NBA draft anyway, but this year, they decided to change up the format a bit, so only the first round of the draft happened tonight, and then the second round will be going down tomorrow to finish things up. The teams picking at the top of the draft and their fans are all looking forward to welcoming a new talented face into their franchise, and it came with a bit of chaos as well, with a bunch of trades going down too, but all of that brings us to today's video. Today we'll be grading the top 10 selections made in tonight's draft, and the grades will be based on the fit of the player, the value that they got the player at, and obviously how good I think the player is compared to where he went. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first pick in the draft was made by the Atlanta Hawks, and with it they selected Zachary Risache, and the grade here is a B+. I'm not sure if there was even a possibility of getting an A in this scenario when you own the number 1 pick in a draft that is viewed as lacking in real star talent, but of everyone available, Risache is probably the safest pick with the highest floor, and he's also the best fit on the team. The Hawks still have Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, so they didn't want to add another big man in Alex Sarr to the mix, and Risache is a very versatile forward that comes with incredibly high defensive upside and knockdown shooting. He may not ever be a legitimate go-to scoring number 1 option, but he can definitely be a high-level secondary option on a winning team with a very high floor. Next, with the second pick, the Washington Wizards selected Alex Sarr, and the grade here is a solid A. The Wizards got a much better end of the stick despite having the second pick and not the first pick, because Alex Sarr was far and away the best fit for them coming into the event, and he is who they would have taken if they had the number 1 selection, so getting him at number 2 is something they didn't hesitate to capitalize on. Sarr projects to be an elite interior defender with impressive athletic prowess and a budding outside jumper on top of it. And for a Wizards team in desperate need of defensive help, Sarr should be able to come in and make an immediate impact. After ranking near the bottom of the NBA defensively last season, and for a few years before that too, the Wizards finally have a player that can help turn things around on that end of the floor. Next, with the third pick, the Houston Rockets selected Reed Sheppard, and the grade here is a B. Reed Sheppard is an incredibly well-rounded guard who plays smart basketball and produces at a ridiculously efficient level. He shot 54% from the field and 52% from 3 at Kentucky, which is obviously amazing, but he's not the type of player to take over a game like that, and he doesn't make many risky plays either. He's a winning player that doesn't try to do too much and knows his role, and players like that carve out very long careers in the NBA, but for a Rockets team that just drafted a guard in last year's draft, have another potential budding star guard in Jalen Green, and just gave a max contract extension to a guard in Fred VanVleet last summer, he's coming into a very crowded backcourt. Next, with the fourth pick, the San Antonio Spurs selected Stephon Castle, and the grade here is a C. Stephon Castle's draft stock soared after he and his UConn team won the national title this year, and he is absolutely the kind of player that impacts winning basketball as a hounding perimeter defender that doesn't back down from any matchup, but offensively, Castle has a long way to go to be consistently productive on that end, and to take a player that raw this early on in the draft does scare me a little bit. Castle shot just 27% from 3 in college last year, so it's hard to even label him as quote-unquote 3-and-D at this point in his development, and while I do trust Coach Greg Popovich to get the most out of him, I think I would have felt a lot better about landing a player like Castle if it was later in the lottery, especially with how much other talent there was available here. Next, with the fifth pick, the Detroit Pistons selected Ron Holland, and the grade here is a B-. To be completely honest with you, I feel like I am higher on this selection than most based on the reactions that I've seen by the general public to this selection. Ron Holland was viewed as a late lottery pick at most by most people predicting the night early on, but his inconsistencies in the G League hurt him a bit, so it could be viewed as a bit of a reach to take him in the top 5, but at the same time, I I am higher on Haaland's upside than others, so I'm not dropping the grade below the B range. Haaland is a freakishly athletic wing player who attacks the basket hard and finishes strong around the rim in transition. No, he did not shoot the 3-ball well in the G League this year, but his jumper isn't nearly as broken as some have made it seem, and if he can become even a league average shooter, then the Pistons got themselves a good one. Next, with the 6th pick, the Charlotte Hornets selected Tijan Solon, and the grade here is a B. Solon is another French prospect coming in with a very carved out role with even more room for growth. He's a big wing player that reliably spots up for 3 and finishes high above the basket with his explosiveness. He's not much of a creator right now off the dribble, but in Charlotte, he'll be playing alongside LaMelo Ball, who is one of the best passers in the game, and will be setting him up for a ton of easy looks, so the fit is pretty ideal all things considered. Next, with the 7th pick, the Portland Trail Blazers selected Donovan Clingan, and the grade here is an A. Clingan falling to the Trail Blazers at 7 was literally the best case scenario for this young Blazers team in need of a long-term answer inside. Clingan was the most dominant defender in college basketball this year, and his ability to shut down the rim played a massive role in UConn winning a 2nd consecutive title. Offensively, he's not going to be scoring much that isn't created for him, but he's a very smart passer out of the high post, and he sets solid screens, so he does the job that is needed from a center at the next level. Next, with the 8th pick, the San Antonio Spurs selected Rob Dillingham, then traded him to the Minnesota Timberwolves, so the grade here is a B+. Dillingham was a bit of a divisive prospect among scouts because while he very well may be the most talented shot creator and playmaker in the draft offensively, he's also incredibly undersized for a guard in the NBA, and concerns about his defensive upside are valid. I tend to err on the side of buying into his offensive game being worth the risk, and with him going to the league's #1 ranked defense in Minnesota, they have the talent around him to make up for his defensive shortcomings. Next, with the 9th pick, the Memphis Grizzlies selected Zach Edey, and the grade here is an F. I'm sorry, I know there's going to be a lot of comments about this grade in particular, but I just simply do not believe in Zach Edey as lottery talent, so to take him at 9 is a complete disaster from my perspective. Edey was without question an all-time great college talent, but the college game simply differs way too much from the NBA game to ignore all of the warning signs that could hold Edey back. He's a slow-footed, back-to-the-basket scoring, non-shooting big man, and the cold hard truth is that it's not the 1980s anymore, and those kind of players tend to fizzle out really quickly now. And finally, with the 10th pick in the draft, the Utah Jazz selected Cody Williams, and the grade here is a B+. Cody Williams' brother Jalen Williams is a rising star on the Thunder right now, and while Cody may not be that level of talent, he has the potential to be close to it. Early in the season this year, he showed that he could knock down threes at a very efficient clip, he could finish high rate at the rim, and he could defend at a high level, and guys with that kind of motor are always welcome in the NBA. The Jazz are in a spot where they can afford to take swings at upside in their rebuild, so this is a pick that could pay off very well for them. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you thought of these picks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.